During last night's action between the Vegas Golden Knights and the Washington Capitals, we had a rematch of last year's Stanley Cup final. Now, throughout this game, we had a lot of hard battles between Capitals forward Tom Wilson and Vegas Golden Knights forward Ryan Reaves. They certainly had their share of hits and battles throughout the game, but later into the game, we did see a hit from Reaves that caused injury to Wilson, as well as him getting ejected. We're going to take a quick look at that hit and discuss the situation coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams, so if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. So as I mentioned off the top, we had a very intense, heated battle last night between the Vegas Golden Knights and the Washington Capitals. Now, of course, this was the rematch from last year's Stanley Cup final. So obviously, especially from Vegas' side, they feel like there's some unfinished business there. And obviously with Tom Wilson and Ryan Reaves are both on the ice, especially from last year's Stanley Cup final. And now there's certainly a little bit of a rivalry going on there for sure. So throughout this game, there was several incidents where these two players were on the ice at the same time, had their share of hits and collisions. Reaves did end up getting ejected for a major penalty for interference, which caused injury to Tom Wilson. If you haven't seen the clip, I'm going to show a quick GIF of the clip here, so have a quick peek and then we'll discuss. So as you can see, Tom Wilson obviously makes a pass and he's kind of watching the puck, but he does seem to take a quick peek and see Reaves coming, but then turns his head back the other way. Now I realize when you watch this in real time, it obviously happens very, very quickly, but it does look like Wilson does take a peek to see Reaves. So I'm not sure why he turned his head back the other way. There probably wasn't a lot of time to react. Either way, I think it's definitely fair to say this was a late hit on Reaves' part. Obviously, the puck had gone out of the zone and was gone long enough that we can definitely say it's a late hit. Certainly falls into the blindside category for sure, even though it does look like Wilson does take a quick peek. He doesn't really see, a clear-cut image of him coming for sure, and based on the angle, I think we can say it's a late hit and definitely a bit of a blindside, but like I said, it's hard to say that with complete certainty just because it does look like Wilson does take a quick peek at him here. Now, obviously, once Reaves makes contact with Wilson, he hits him pretty hard, and you see Wilson's helmet comes flying off, which shouldn't be happening if that helmet strap is on properly, but we'll get into that here in a moment. But obviously, the helmet comes flying off, Reaves goes down to the ice, and looks as though he goes forehead first down to the ice. So it's a very, very dangerous situation for Tom Wilson. And even though I've been pretty hard on Tom Wilson for a lot of his prior actions, I do have genuine concern here for his well-being. And even though I'm not a fan of his and how he plays the game, I certainly don't want to see anything bad happen to him on the ice for sure, or any other NHL player for that matter. You can say what you want about the hit, and it's certainly not a hit that I'm a fan of. However, the helmet flying off, you can't blame Reaves for that. If the chin strap was done up properly, likely doesn't happen. Now, he still probably goes down the way he does. However, that helmet might have protected his head a lot better. Now, not to say that he wouldn't have been injured at all. It's hard to say exactly because you can't see the exact directness of the face hitting the ice there, but at the end of the day, there is some responsibility on the player to have their equipment on properly. Now, we see all kinds of NHL skaters skating around with that loose chin strap, and I don't really understand why. It's obviously dangerous, and this is your perfect scenario to outline why and how things that can happen for not doing that right. But back to the hit here, there's certainly no head contact. Ryan Reaves makes shoulder-to-shoulder contact with Tom Wilson. This is a very similar situation that we talked about not too long ago when Tom Wilson hit the New Jersey Devils player just in the past week or so. Now, of course, at that point, I wasn't a fan of that hit either. I was hard on Wilson. I did think he should be suspended. However, that was mostly because of Tom Wilson's track record. At the same time, though, I did acknowledge, even if I might not have said so in the video, through the comments of that video, that this is not necessarily anything that falls under a repeat offender category because it wasn't a headshot. It was a late hit, it was a blindside hit, but there wasn't a headshot. It was not head contact, so it was a different type of scenario than he's been previously suspended for. Even though he's got a bad reputation and a bad track record in the past here, that's the reason why NHL Player Safety opted not to suspend Tom Wilson for that hit. They felt the major penalty given during the game was sufficient. Now, the Department of Player Safety has already come out as well on this Ryan Reaves-Tom Wilson situation and has indicated that Ryan Reaves will not face supplementary discipline. He was given a major penalty for this hit, ejected from the game, and they feel that's sufficient. Now, I guess the main thing they seem to be suspending above and beyond for here is headshots. So I guess the one thing that this hit, as well as the other Wilson hit with the Devils, have in common is that the headshots were not happening here. They were shoulder-to-shoulder hits, so they were, bad interference penalties that probably do justify a major penalty, in my opinion. And I could see maybe the NHL should consider possibly doing maybe shorter suspensions for some things like this, because they are dangerous plays, even though they're not headshots. There's certainly a lot of other things that can happen on the ice that's not a headshot, but can still result in a major injury. But again, like I said, we can't blame Reaves for the fact that Wilson's helmet wasn't on properly and come flying off. Now here's a little bit of history just in case you didn't know as well. The NHL mandated helmets back in June the 1st of 1979. We have had one situation in past in the NHL, which actually happened way back in 1968 in January. I think it was January the 13th of 68. Where Bill Masterton, which you probably know, at least know from the Masterton Trophy being named after him, struck his head on the ice and he never regained consciousness. He did pass away from that major hit on the ice. So obviously that's the only fatality we've ever seen happen during NHL action. But look how long it took from 68 to 79 to have it mandated. And even then, when they mandated the helmets in 79, they had a grandfather clause that if you were signing a pro contract prior to that date, you had the option of wearing a helmet or not. But anybody new signing a contract and coming to the league from that day forward had to wear a helmet. Now, of course, the last guy to kind of ride that out was Craig McTavish. If you're old enough to remember watching him play, Mac T did not wear a helmet throughout his career, and he played right up until the 96-97 season. And thankfully for him, he was able to get through that career without any severe damage to his head, even though he never played with a helmet. But obviously from that point forward, we've kind of seen other things change here in regards to visors and whatnot. And I do believe at one point, I was looking for it online, but I couldn't find an article or any press releases to kind of confirm. But I thought at one point there was a rule or a mandate from the NHL indicating about the chin strap not being so loose that it had to be done up properly. If I'm wrong on that, please correct me, but I'm pretty sure at one point there was. And it seems as though at this point they're not enforcing it. Now, if that was not mandated and I'm incorrect, then they certainly need to look at doing that, because as we can see here, we see it all the time. Players running around with the chin strap just a dangling, and this is a prime example why that is so dangerous and why it should not be done. We sometimes need to protect these players from themselves. I mean, I guess when you realize you're on the ice, you're a big, strong guy, you think nothing's going to happen. But you know what? It can happen to anybody. No different than getting a stick in the face or a puck in the face. There's a lot of things that can happen out there beyond their control, and that's definitely something that should be looked at. I've seen other comments and other videos where we've talked about suspensions or stick plays or other injuries and whatnot, where even some people have suggested that maybe the NHL should look at wearing a full cage. And I wouldn't be completely against that either. I do understand from playing hockey myself how you kind of prefer not to have it. You feel like you have better vision. I do get that. But strictly from a safety perspective, I don't think there's a whole lot of an argument that it would be a bad idea. Although I will say it's highly unlikely we'll see that at least anytime soon, where that will be mandated to the NHL where they wear full cages. Wouldn't be surprised at some point after enough things maybe happen that it could get to that. But I'd be shocked if we see that anytime soon. My take on the hit is basically that I don't like it. I mean, Reaves is a very aggressive player. He plays hard. Him and Tom Wilson had many battles throughout that game. And even though it's Tom Wilson on the ice, I don't like to see anybody, I don't care who they are or what kind of reputation they have, laying on the ice with a severe injury like that. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. So I do hope Tom Wilson is okay. But at the end of the day, I really don't think, based on what we saw from player safety, that they're going to be continuous here with this type of calls that we saw. Like Wilson didn't get suspended for his in New Jersey. Reaves obviously won't be suspended for this one. But at the same time, I wouldn't be completely opposed to the NHL at least giving out some kind of short suspensions unless you see a repeated pattern by a particular player for these types of late interference hits. Even though there's no head contact, it can still result in injury, and it's something that they should certainly try to eliminate from the game because it can be a dangerous play. Blindside late hits are not part of a hockey play, in my opinion. Now, I've seen many comments through social media saying Tom Wilson had bad karma coming at him, and this is kind of him getting his now after dishing out many of these similar types of hits and injuring players in the past. And I'm not going to completely disagree with that. I kind of do believe in karma, and you know what? Maybe he did have something coming, but at the end of the day, I don't want Wilson or anybody else to get hurt. but maybe, just maybe, we can hope that Tom Wilson will learn from this. Hopefully he's okay and he can come back and resume his playing career. But I would like to see Tom Wilson change his game so that he's not so reckless and so dangerous. Like I said, I don't care if it's Tom Wilson, Ryan Reaves, Brad Marchand, any other player with a bad reputation or anybody with a great reputation. You don't want to see these types of injuries. It's the last thing you want to see is anybody laying on the ice motionless. And you certainly don't want to see what happened back to Bill Masterton back in 1968 happen ever again. So, of course, leave me your thoughts on this hit down in the comment section. Do you think the NHL's got it right here by not suspending Reaves? And really, you can kind of compare this to the previous Wilson hit against the Devils as well. Is this the right call here? Let me your thoughts and we'll continue the conversation. If you're new to the channel here, hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams, and there's plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. So if you're new, hit that subscribe button. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up before you go. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you very much for watching, everybody. We will catch you next time.